For years, Union Pacific's big boy steam giants ruled the mountain passes, stretching 132 feet and weighing 600 tons, until runaway costs and post-war realities forced a desperate, high-stakes gamble. An 8,500 horsepower gas turbine designed to make legends obsolete. But behind this promise of jet-age power lies one of the most spectacular and costly engineering downfalls in railroad history. What really shattered the dream of the monster built to replace the big boy? Beneath the mythic silhouette of the big boy, a hidden world of labor churned day and night. Each engine stretched 132 feet from coupler to coupler, weighing in at over 1.2 million pounds with its tender, an iron colossus built to conquer the grades between Ogden and Green River. But power came at a staggering price. Every day, armies of workers descended on the yards, firemen, boilermakers, machinists, and wipers, all needed to keep these giants moving. Ash pits ran hot as crews shoveled out tons of spent coal. Water towers and coaling stations dotted the landscape, feeding the endless appetite of the boilers. After every run across the Wasatch, each big boy faced a punishing maintenance ritual. Boiler washouts, inspections, and heavy servicing became routine, sometimes forcing the engine off the line for hours or even days. The cycle was relentless, the costs mounting. Labor, fuel, and a sprawling infrastructure of shops and supply depots strained the railroad's bottom line. By the late 1940s, the expense of keeping steam alive was no longer justifiable. The big boy had proven its strength, but its era was defined by a constant struggle against time, money, and the limits of steam. The search for something stronger and cheaper became impossible to ignore. In the early 1950s, Union Pacific's boardroom filled with the urgency of change. At the head of the table sat President A.E. Stoddard, facing down the spiraling costs and logistical headaches of steam. The numbers left little room for nostalgia. Maintenance crews stretched thin, coal bills climbing, and competition from diesel gathering on every horizon. Stoddard, known for his appetite for modernization, pressed for a solution that would not just match the big boy's brute force, but surpass it, without the endless parade of labor and infrastructure. General Electric, eager to prove its gas turbine technology could conquer the rails, brought forward a radical proposition. Instead of spreading horsepower across multiple smaller engines, they would concentrate it in a single titanic machine. The idea was simple on paper: harness jet-age power to haul heavier trains faster, with fewer stops and less human intervention. After months of negotiation and analysis, the board gave its approval. In 1951, Union Pacific placed its first order for 10 4,500 horsepower gas turbine electric locomotives, a move that would commit the railroad to a bold new path. The agreement was not just a purchase, it was a wager on the future. E. Stoddard's signature on the contract signaled a decisive break from the past, turning Union Pacific into the first major railroad to bet its mountain main line on the promise of concentrated high-horsepower innovation. Before we ignite the turbines on this forgotten monster, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories of engineering ambition and failure. General Electric's first prototype for Union Pacific was a machine unlike anything that had run on American rails before. Delivered in 1948, it packed 4,800 horsepower, of which 4,500 actually drove the wheels, into a streamlined 80-foot shell. This early turbine was a technical marvel, but it was only the beginning. Engineers at General Electric, working in tandem with Union Pacific's mechanical department, saw the prototype as a proof of concept. They set their sights higher, aiming to create a single locomotive that could eclipse not just the big boy, but every engine in the world. The solution was a gas turbine running at a constant speed, its power regulated through the generator rather than a throttle. A small auxiliary diesel engine handled switching duties and kept the lights on when the main turbine was cold. With each generation, the horsepower climbed, from the initial 4,500 to 8,500 in the final series, more than 4 times the output of a typical diesel of the era. The promise was clear: one machine, immense power, fewer stops, and the ability to conquer mountain grades with authority. For the railroad's leadership, this was the future, jet-age technology brought to Earth and put to work hauling freight across the high plains. Across the country, the promise of turbine power arrived in a blaze of optimism. General Electric's public relations team launched a campaign that captured the spirit of the 1950s with gleaming brochures, newsreels, and magazine spreads that declared, "Tomorrow is here." The ads showed engineers in spotless white coats beaming beside massive turbine assemblies, while artists' renderings painted the new locomotive slicing through endless prairie under banners of jet-age progress. Newsreel announcers called it atomic-age horsepower on steel rails, and trade journals marveled at the sheer scale. A single engine boasting more horsepower than 4 of the latest diesels combined. Union Pacific and General Electric staged press events with executives shaking hands and posing for cameras beside blueprints and scale models. The turbine's futuristic lines and aviation-inspired technology became a symbol of American ingenuity, promising faster, heavier trains with less effort. For a moment, the dream of a new era in railroading felt not just possible, but inevitable. Public enthusiasm soared, and expectations for this mechanical marvel reached new heights. On a December morning in 1953, the new gas turbine electric locomotive faced its proving ground, Sherman Hill. Crisp air bit at the crew as they readied the controls. General Electric field engineers clustered around the instrument panels, eyes fixed on every gauge. The train behind them stretched heavy, more than 400 tons beyond what a big boy would have dared. With a deep mechanical whine, the turbine spooled up, sending a piercing shriek across the snow-dusted grade. As the consist began its assault on the summit, the speedometer needle edged higher, holding steady even as the climb steepened. Field logs from that day captured the moment the turbine crested the hill, several miles per hour faster than steam had ever managed with such a load. Dispatchers noted the numbers and quietly adjusted tonnage ratings for future runs. For the operating crews, it was more than a technical victory. It was a visceral experience. The raw power, the relentless pull, the sense that the future had just arrived on rails. By the time the locomotive rolled into Laramie, the promise was no longer theoretical. Here was proof, written in speed and tonnage, that a single machine could outmuscle the old order. The board in Omaha saw the results and moved quickly to expand the fleet, convinced that Union Pacific's bold gamble had paid off. Inside the Ogden shops, the promise of turbine power gave way to a daily struggle with the realities of Bunker C oil. This fuel, thick as tar, arrived cold and unyielding. Crews had to heat it to 200 degrees Fahrenheit just to coax it through the lines. Even then, filters clogged and pumps groaned under the strain. Mechanics watched temperature gauges with uneasy eyes, knowing that a single misstep could stall an entire train. The turbine's heart, the hot section, bore the scars of this relentless assault. Ash and grit in the fuel chewed through turbine blades, leaving them pitted and eroded after only a few weeks on the rails. What should have lasted years instead demanded constant attention, with turbines torn down and rebuilt at a pace no diesel could match. Shipments of replacement parts from General Electric piled up, and the shop floor filled with the clatter of wrenches and the hiss of torches. Each overhaul was a race against time, as more units lined up for the same repairs, their promise of effortless power slipping away with every hour spent idle. Complaints echoed up and down the Wasatch Front as the turbines gained a reputation that no amount of horsepower could erase. Residents near the tracks called them the Big Blow, a name born from the piercing jet roar and the thick black smoke that poured from their stacks, Laundry hung outside came down streaked with soot. Cars and garden beds collected a greasy residue. Town councils logged letters and phone calls, each one describing sleepless nights and ruined mornings. The railroad's own records showed a growing stack of grievances, but the turbines kept running until the economics shifted. By late 1973, the world oil crisis struck hard. The price of bunker C, once a cheap byproduct, doubled almost overnight. Union Pacific's finance department issued a memo that turbine fuel costs had jumped so sharply that every mile run was now a loss. On December 18th, a directive from Omaha ordered the entire fleet mothballed, effective immediately. In yards across Wyoming and Utah, mechanics shut down the turbines for the last time, leaving rows of silent giants to gather dust and snow. The age of jet-age railroading ended not with a celebration, but with a single final order: shut them down and do not bring them back. Innovation in this scale still fails when economics shift faster than ambition. As railroads automate and energy costs surge again, the fate of the turbine is a warning. Visionary engineering alone does not guarantee survival. The line between legend and scrap is drawn by what the future is willing to pay.